Greetings, my name is Timothy Halloran. I am a weatherman of sorts, and in these videos we're discussing the nature of the times. We're discussing the end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020, and these are indeed quite the times that we are entering into. We just had our winter solstice up here in the northern hemisphere. We've got a total solar eclipse in Capricorn just after midnight, the east coast of the United States, Christmas Day. So the nature of time, it's a central theme right now, where we find ourselves in it and what we can be doing about it. Astrology reveals the nature of space-time, and we are indeed now entering a dense space-time. It's an appropriately wet and gloomy week here in Savannah, and we just had the sun enter Saturn sign of Capricorn. This takes place the moment of each winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So we're now into Capricorn season. Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, is time, structure, responsibility, our role in the world, our own duties, our obligation to family, again, our jobs, role in the world, the standards, the structures necessary for society, necessary for survival, success, longevity. We're really looking at the long term, and Jupiter has just entered into Saturn sign of Capricorn from December 2nd through the end of 2020, really expanding all these themes, all things Saturn. And so there can be this looming sense of seriousness. Yes, there is a heaviness around this time of year, the holiday season. We tend to experience this pinch, this time limit, this money pressure. And particularly this year, we're really looking at these real world issues as humanity is entering this crux, this turning point, this turning of a page in the story, the chapter of humanity's history. And so there's this tremendous theme of restructuring, reprioritization, and adjustment as Saturn is coming into a new cycle with Pluto this next month of January. These cycles only begin anew 2 to 3 times a century. Again, we're looking at the long road ahead. There's this deep theme, what really matters. What's important? What is the priority? And what is this next chapter for humanity if we can make it through this gateway? And this is what Saturn oftentimes rules, is these threshold guardians, these rite of passages in order to initiate into newfound levels of strength, capability, self-development, and mastery. And so each and every one of us can now be experiencing this threshold guardian, this rite of passage on an individual level. And certainly as a collective, this whole species of humanity is now at this threshold guardian, this evolutionary gateway where we must adjust, reprioritize, and restructure our relationship to the world, nature, societies, etc., very much from the ground up. So Saturn is the judge. We can say that humanity is now on trial. And again, we can be experiencing this type of pressure, this pinch, that important decisions now need to be made. And important redirections need to be initiated. So first of all, to give yourself a little bit of some reaffirmation, this is a time where we can be experiencing this nearly apocalyptic type of energy, pressure, or that sense of kind of gloominess that, okay, we have to pay attention to the nitty-gritty details, this three-dimensional reality where we experience limitation, time, boundaries, those little obstacles that Saturn puts in our path. This is the time where we can be experiencing these challenges, these setbacks, these obstacles, and we're not crazy for having any of these experiences. And absolutely an important thing to bear in mind at this time is, though this can be challenging, nearly depressing, these obstacles, these challenges are so thoroughly productive in addressing these issues that really matter, that really are important. And we don't necessarily need to be totally gung-ho, happy, glasses half full always while we are in these types of pinch periods. And that's not to encourage us to go down that downward spiral, but rather to give ourselves the permission, the flexibility to slow down, to process, to rewind, to be the parents to our own inner child, to give ourselves those pats on the back, to give ourselves that credit, that recognition that I'm proud of you, we are doing meaningful work, and you know what? We're paying it forward. It really matters, and it's going to make a big difference in our life, even if we need to roll our sleeves up a bit right now. Now, Jupiter, front and center, taking the spotlight in terms of these planetary archetypes being conjoined, this upcoming total solar eclipse in Capricorn. Again, this is just after midnight on the East Coast, United States, Christmas Day. And this eclipse, first of all, any eclipse season is a 6-month cycle where we are completing an old eclipse cycle. We're sowing a seed for the next 6 months. And this solar eclipse we're going to be taking a look at in detail in this video is providing a 6-month snapshot, giving us a map, giving us a plan for some of these collective intentions that will be unfolding into this next year of 2020 to come. Now, Jupiter, the great illuminator, the expanding, exploring, discovering, pioneering function of humanity in the sign of Capricorn, related to time, is really exploring these Capricorn themes of man-made societal structures. And there's this tremendous reflection. Again, we're looking at where do we find ourselves in time and what can we do about it. And so we're looking at how did we form these structures and how can we become empowered to change them. And here's where we're taking this look back. It's almost like we are looking at now humanity's manual. Yeah, that manual that was written by, the original proprietors, the original constructors of these societies, of these man-made constructs. And yes, these are man-made constructs, our cultures, our civilizations, in many respects, our traditions, how we go about and live our day. And so that's these manuals that we can be reviewing at right now. Reflecting on the past, culture, history, how we have formed these cultural beliefs, these particular perspectives, these national ideals, these, again, traditions, rules of behavior, rules of morality in particular is going to be very highlighted with this Jupiter in Capricorn on his own South Node theme. What's a good girl, good boy program to be and do? And is that healthy? And is that serving us? Is much of the reflection we can be doing at this time. Now, Saturn rules gravity, okay? There are these dynamics, these issues that we have to look at. And there can be a tremendous gravity that's taking us into the past. This is a moon's south node solar eclipse. We're looking at humanity's history, okay? What's been established, what's known, what we're familiar with. And indeed, we can be looking at our own comfort zones in terms of society, programs, constructs, what these hoops we've been trained to jump through and those treats that we've been trained to see as success or pats on the back. And there's this tremendous gravity to look at the world's ruts, these comfort zones that we formed in our society. Saturn is the gravity of conditioning. Conditioning is the process through which we have a redundant behavior reinforced. And this conditioning tends to happen through outside, top of the hierarchy, authorities going down the ladder through rules, regulations, expectations, obligations, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to function, and that's what reinforces and conditions these old behavior, these old rules, and they're very old. The old prescriptions, belief systems, rules, and regulations that we're looking at this time, we can say they've been chiseled into the stone in many respects. This is what conditioning does for us, and this begins very, very early on in our life. As soon as we start receiving feedback from our parents, which begins at day one, what makes them provide, what allows us to be received, us to be safe, and we start to form those rules, those regulations, pass, fail, good, bad, right, wrong. My parents approve of this, disapprove of that. And that's what conditions, aka limits, these boundaries, these containers of who we are. And the whole world has formed these limits. Our nations, our cultures, our traditions live within these limits. And that is in particular what Jupiter is illuminating, what is inflating in many respects, so we can really see again where we've been, what we've done, and what those old ruts are. In particular, this solar eclipse is going to be illuminating the shadow, the old ruts of old classically conditioned Jupiter, which can be religion, philosophy, laws, particularly as they relate to morality or behaviors. And in particular, we're looking at Jupiter, culture, nations, traditions of expectation. It's almost as if we're all taking a portal back. And again, there's this tremendous gravity, this pull, this nostalgia. Not just to mentally review, but to really re-experience, to re-witness, and to remember our past. Now, this is what the moon south node, and again, it's not just the moon south node where this total solar eclipse is. It's on Jupiter's own south node, conjoined Jupiter. So again, there's this collective past theme. And it's not all bad when we're talking about the south node, when we're talking about Jupiter's south node. The reason why these south nodes can sometimes get this more negative reputation is because, just like we said, it's known, it's familiar, it's comfortable. And because it's known, familiar, we have more of a tendency to get stuck in these ruts. And at the same time, it's known, it's familiar, we're sick of it. These are old rules. These are old programs, blinders, perspectives, ways of viewing, witnessing, perceiving our world. But there are also gifts that we can be reviewing. What has lasted the test of time? What our ancestors and forefathers have constructed, and what those roads that have been laid for us, where there are gifts, where there is wisdom coming from the past. And indeed, there are wisdom schools that have lasted the test of time. So we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, okay? There is this reviewing, there is ancient wisdom, there is heritage here. Heritage, what we have inherited from the past. However, what's also reviewed in all of this revealing, reviewing, remembering is the tremendous gravity of what's known, what's familiar. And in particular, now through mid-January, while Saturn is still completing its cycle to Pluto in that balsamic phase, there's this tremendous reliving of the old. Even reliving all of these old lifetimes, all these old worlds, all these old realities, we're somewhat culminating, completing, reliving, reviewing, and tying up of loose ends. while this old cycle is still completing. And there's this huge dynamic push and pull that each and every one of us can be experiencing here. And this is a part of that Saturn-Pluto theme, is this dynamic tension between Pluto transforming, carving new pathways, breaking the old down in order to create this kind of fusion reactor potential, this capacity to break free into the new, and settling. This gravity, again, just to settle for the old, or to be comfortable in the old, or to conform, or in that stereotypical, heavy, depressing Saturn way, simply giving up, or reverting back to what's socially acceptable, to what is socially secure, what seems safe out there in the world, and those old accepted standards, again, those old ruts. Well, Jupiter expanding, illuminating, even exaggerating our own inner conditioning, what those redundant behaviors, those old programs are, how we used to feel secure. By replaying these reels and seeing these dynamic push-pulls, having our insecurities tested and having these little buttons pushed. And again, the apocalypse feeling world is doing a very excellent job pushing these buttons. And this is allowing for these old reels to be replayed, to clearly see what is no longer acceptable, what we no longer can be doing, what we no longer can be living. And this is to push us into change, to see these old ruts, these old prescriptions, these old beliefs, to see how, oh my gosh, they are misogynistic, they are patriarchal, they are racist, they are buried in these more primitive patterns of the past, where there's divisionism and there's fight to survival, and that's repeating all of these current age issues that we're seeing. And so now that we clearly see those old patterns, that old broken record, in many respects, this is what Saturn is. And again, Saturn is conditioning. It's that classical conditioning. Pavlov rings a bell and the dog salivates, whether or not there is food there to be eaten. That's how much we all get whipped around by the chains, the programs of this conditioning. And if we're unaware, if we are not caring or aware enough of our world, of our society, and these greater picture patterns. That's the gift of not only astrology, but history, life, humanity. That's what we get to experience. Our prior generations, how our parents did things, so we can take what's good, leave the rest, bring improvements, and evolve. So this Saturn conditioning, we build structures, we build foundations that are hopefully built to stand the test of time, and then we review them, we test them, we make changes, and this is how we evolve. This process of building up conditioning and taking down is deconditioning. And at this time, the most important number one priority is deconditioning, the breaking of the rules of the old system, the old program, the old games, by clearly seeing how they can no longer be serving us. In that old simplistic, oh yeah, that'll take care of everything. Oh yeah, that's acceptable. Okay, our parents did it, so it's okay. Oh, okay, our daddies did it, so okay. No. And I've got a wonderful support for this. I've actually got a video in my store entirely about deconditioning, Saturn and deconditioning, and through the end of December, I'm going to have a 50% sale off of everything in my store, rosalilahealing.com/store. If you're interested, that deconditioning workshop comes with a video that goes all into the different dynamics of Saturn, how we can be deconditioning, as well as an hour-long deconditioning audio MP3 that we simply relax, unwind, and listen to help unwind these loose ends, create space in order for new patterns and programs to be brought in. However, the number one process is before the new comes in, deconditioning. We have to make space for the new. And that's by sort of, again, seeing how these old programs no longer can exist in the same empowered, really can be taken seriously type of way. Back to Jupiter on his own south node, okay? Really bringing up these Jupiterian themes. And in particular, what we're seeing is patriarchy. We're revealing the world's old Zeus complex, right? Zeus was that old male dominant, has sex with whatever goddess he wants to have sex with, makes up whatever rules he wants to make up, so that way he's in control, he's number one. That's our old pal Zeus. And our world has become comfortable in Zeus's standards, patriarchal constructs, patriarchal beliefs. And again, we become comfortable in those patriarchal coping mechanisms through avoidance of the deeper issues, of the deeper insecurities, of our own deeper wounds. In particular, this Capricorn gravity leads us away from emotions. And the way we become comfortable in patriarchal programs and strict scripts is through emotional avoidance. There has never before been a more important time to practice that necessary polarity, the north node of the moon in Cancer. Emotional processing, safe space, safe relationships, safe supportive groups to be ourselves, to be vulnerable, to explore what's going on inside of ourselves. That inner exploration is where the rubber hits the road, the deconditioning becomes transformation, becomes magic, we heal, we evolve, and we step into our potential. When we avoid our inner landscape, when we emotionally avoid or steer away from our deeper unmet needs, our deeper wounds, and our society is built to do this. This is a capitalistic produce more, consume more, spend more hours in work to earn more money society. And so emotions and what's not met in us and the voice of the inner child and our lost innocence, not necessarily relevant, right, to society's expectations. And society encourage us, conform, avoid, forget about all that. And we become comfortable in the coping mechanisms. That's what we get to see. What are we comfortable in that allows us to avoid? One of those very common, culturally ordained avoidance coping mechanisms is workaholism. Okay, Capricorn season, post-holiday stress, post-Christmas blues. This is where we experience this dynamic. And workaholism, though our society unhealthily rewards it, is a post-traumatic stress condition. It is how we avoid the unresolved trauma, the unresolved wounds in ourselves by focusing outward. That's this patriarchal conditioning. Outward focusing. I'll jump through this hoop first, and then I'll feel good. I'll complete this task first, and then I'll have met my boss's demands, and then I get that golden star next to my name. There's this constant approval seeking that's been deeply conditioned by this Zeus complex. And now we're encouraged to crusade, to campaign. I'm going to earn my way back to heaven by knocking on as many people's doors as I can, by, building up that statue as big as I can build it, and submitting to those authorities. It makes my dad happy. It's what he wanted me to do. It makes my boss satisfied. The whole company's doing better now. I pleased my guru, and so I am pleased. These are these outward, approval-seeking, patriarchal, make Zeus happy first constructs. And this time period that we're in, holiday season, January, over-ambition through the classic bait of capitalism. Happy holidays, There's these societal scripts, earn more, produce more. That's what makes us a good parent. We have good gifts beneath the tree. And we have everything to give to our family. And there are these societal pyramid schemes. That's what this whole patriarchal societal construct is. And through these avoidance coping mechanisms, we separate from that inner connection. We separate from our own inner authority, from our own inner knowing, from our own inner safety. I think of that symbol here in the United States on the dollar bill. There's that pyramid with the all-seeing eye on top. And all the conspiracy theories get very, paranoid about this. But that all-seeing eye, it's separate from the rest of the pyramid. Those one percenters, those Zeuses, those authorities, they're separate from the rest of the society, the rest of the system. And we wonder why the rest of society, the rest of us are struggling, are suffering. They don't even know. They're separate from this. So again, this seeking outer approval, the pleasing of the guru, our father society, leads us outside, and then we trip over our own shoes. The North Node in Cancer is about exploring our own inner content, inner exploration. And here's again where the rubber hits the road. We are exploring, therefore, Jupiter eclipse on the South Node. All of these complexes are being swept to the surface, and that's where the inner exploration is taking place. We are exploring our own inner Zeus complex. We're exploring our own deeply conditioned scripts, these pass-fail, good-bad, conditioned evaluations. The shadow side of Jupiter can really be seen where these Zeus programs have conditioned us to focus on over-moralism and overly simple black and white hierarchical types of standards. I'm ascending, they don't know what astrology is. I'm a Christian, they're non-Christians. I'm an American, they're non-American. I'm a man, they're a woman. I'm a woman, they're a man. Misogyny, the caste system, which is, by the way, prevalent across the board in all societies all over the world. We all have caste systems. You're born into this level of society. Here's your cultural script. Here's the types of jobs you get. Here's the behaviors you're expected to be, etc. Jump through this hoop, you get a treat. Accomplish this task, you get that golden star. You're a good girl. You're a good boy. I grew up being handed a G.I. Joe, right? This is these types of cultural standards, and we've been talking about in these videos how deep these gender stigmas go. We don't even realize how deep these conditioned ruts go. They go back to age 1, age 2. This is who I am. I am a boy. This is what's open to me. This is what's going to be closed for me now through the rest of my life, and vice versa. Women get shunned away from power, shunned away from self-autonomy. Oh, no, that's for the other gender. Age 1, 2, 3. Before we have a memory, we are having these rules, these regulations nailed in. You're going to be a G.I. Joe. You're going to be tough. You're going to save the world by being a warrior, by being a hero. Male programming. This Saturn-Pluto conjunction taking place this next month, we are now in the most bottom levels, subterranean complexes of these base structures of our own programming. And now we are reading the manuals, we're rewriting the rules, we are reprogramming the base structuring, okay? We can think of those deep sea divers, those electricians or engineers that go to the very bottom of the building, those techies that are programming from the core computer language, getting into the binary programming from DOS up, that's what we're doing, the base level programming. And we are going in as our own doctors, our own nurses, and we are on the operating table. And you know what? Capricorn, we all need new role models. We all need new authority figures. We need new standards for how to be a healthy human and live in a healthy relationship to the world, the earth, the rest of humanity, the rest of nature. And in many respects, this is calling us to stand up. This total solar eclipse squaring Chiron, third quarter square, trine to Uranus, is a tremendous wake-up. Again, this is just sowing the seed for the first 6 months of 2020, a highly revolutionary global wake-up call. Time to initiate, time to stand up for change. In the prior video, I spoke directly about this Chiron in Aries period, where we can all be going through self-initiations at this time. Check out the last video if this is relevant to you. If other people aren't doing it, Other people aren't teaching it. Other people aren't standing up for what's needed. That's our call to action. We're the leader. We're taking charge. Now is our time. Okay? This is a time where we are the new authorities. And we are standing up for this call to return to what's essential through this decluttering, the removal of these conditioned man-made constructs that become limitations in our own experience of consciousness. These conditions are not just coming from the world and society and Uncle Sam's, tax requests. These are these inner constructs that limit our experience of life, that limit our consciousness. When I was a little child, I had a redundant nightmare that oftentimes took place when I was very, very sick, and I would sometimes wake up so nauseous I would run to the toilet and vomit because the feelings in this dream were so overwhelming. And what this dream, this very symbolic, what I'm going to say is a collective dream is it begins with a little tiny microscopic flower on this tiny little microscopic planet, this beautiful essence. And then surrounding this flower, there's these giant gears and machines, and they're revolving around, and they're cluttering up this little flower, and layer after layer of machine, construct, heavy machinery, more, and there's this overwhelming sense of hugeness being crushed. This tiny little flower is overwhelmed. And this is our collective dream. And these machines are not just the man-made constructs, but in our own consciousness limitations, structures that we've created. And you know what? We're feeling that pressure. How I would wake up nauseous. This is this collective panic that we're waking up to at this time. And this is to initiate this journey of cleaning up, decluttering. Now is the time to initiate humanity's cleanup, reprioritization, and getting back on track. So you know what? Absolutely a serious time. Absolutely a real time. Absolutely we're feeling this apocalyptic type of pressure. No, you're not alone. And absolutely, it's the time to pay it forward. Mercury enters Capricorn December 28th through this next month. We've got 4 planets in Capricorn. It's a time of practical planning. Asteroid Vesta, asteroid of focus, devotion, hard work, stationing direct, 12 degrees of the Earth sign of Taurus, December 29th. Time to find focus. What's essential, one step at a time, to bring us back on track in order to declutter, open space, and find this clear direction back home. That North Node in Cancer, back to our core, back to who we are in our nature, back to what it really means to be a human being, back to what it really means to have this planet Earth as our home. Venus is in Uranus sign of Aquarius, while Uranus is in Venus sign of Taurus, December 20th through January 13th. There is also this pioneering experimental nature, how we are relating in our relationships, how we are earning, spending our money. We do have to explore what are these conditions. We do have to reflect back on the past. We do have to do this inner exploration in order to make these adjustments from many different dimensional facets, to bring everything into alignment, to bring everything back on track. And in that regard, I'm wishing you all the best. Again, I have some tools set for your exploration in my store, now 50% off, now through the end of December. We're certainly entering a year. 2020 is an amazing year to be paying attention to astrology. Okay, Capricorn, Saturn is time. We can really be seeing so apparently, so accurately, so crystal clearly what these larger human cycles are, where these changes of directions are turning us. And my goodness, the tool, the gift, the blessing of astrology is essential in having that map with that arrow pointing, this is where you are. And in the midst of this collective panic, this collective heaviness, there can be no greater of a gift, not coming from any man-made construct, not coming from any man-made system, religion, cultural, prescriptive belief. Astrology is the symbol system of nature. It is the language of nature that comes from direct experiential observation, correlation, living life, comparing. It's a science, it's reality, and we get to really be proving that to ourselves this next year. So stick around. It's an exciting year. It's an exciting decade to come. And again, I'm wishing absolutely all the best as you are coming into your power as an authority in this planet, on this world, at this time.